Welcome to Eat KL for October. Okay, so for those of you who haven't got a seat, feel free to fill up the place on the left. There's lots of place here. There's no cobwebs, so feel free to have a seat. Yeah, if you want, you can grab pizza. Pizza is good this month. So some of our food is sponsored by the Ethereum Foundation, so they gladly sponsored some of our allocation. So give a big hand to them. And of course, some of our sponsors today include AWS, who kindly sponsored this place with Halloween decoration, which we find is all in the spirit of Ethereum. And lastly, we're also sponsored by Etherscan and also Etherscan, who sponsors some of the allocation here. All right. So, Devcon just happened a week ago. Who went to Devcon? Who went to Devcon? Jason, Sander, Yudish. Anyone else went to Devcon? 3 of you. Okay, Isan. Oh, Isan. Yeah, hiding there, Isan. Yeah. All right, cool. So our meetup for the month of October is going to be focused on some recaps from what happened at Devcon. It's also going to be a lot of things we discussed at Devcon, including protocol updates, updates on the Ethereum roadmap. The merge just happened. Who was there at the merge watch party? Who was there at the merge watch party? Yes, Jason. All right. So, as usual, we'll be starting with some of our roundups. But guys, on the right, could you guys have a seat and fill up the space here? Just a little bit. All right, thanks. Okay, so as usual, we'll start up with our monthly roundup. And this includes the things that have happened in October. So one of the major things that happened in October was the BSC Token Hub exploit. So how many of you guys here have used the Binance Smart Chain? Anyone here uses BSC? You mean NFTs or you come from Binance, you would have used BSC. So unfortunately this month, an exploit happened on the BSC Token Hub where a major amount of tokens were drained, and the validator set of BSC essentially helped to stop this draining of tokens, and they did some hard forks to essentially save the chain. But essentially, if you are a user, you would largely not be affected as they did roll back the damage of the hack from this. Next. All right, next is Polygon ZK EVM has announced their public testnets. So if those of you who are not familiar with what ZK EVM or zero knowledge stuff is, we'll have a small presentation later by Chi Chuan. Where is Chi Chuan? Okay, he's hiding there. Yeah, but Chi Chuan will be hosting zero knowledge. We'll be covering some zero knowledge stuff. Sorry for making you awkward. But this is essentially, for those of you who use Polygon, they are also into ZK technologies. And we will also be covering a small introduction to what ZK is. And of course, if you guys are not taking part in the ZK Sync airdrop, then you should. Next. All right, so next, during Devcon, I'm not sure for those of you who went to Devcon, there is an ENS swag card. I'm not sure if any of the Devcon people brought it. Did anyone get it? The Devcon swag card. Do you have it? Okay, you might. Yeah, so for those of you who went to Devcon, yeah, you want to bring here, Jason? So everyone, look on the left.
Let's see it.
It's the ENS, what do you call it? It is a special token for those of you who have ENSs. You'll be able to scan it, if I'm not mistaken. You get the POAP, yeah. And you would get the individual POAP of the person who has this card. So
Jason, did they print the card on site?
On site, oh, that's amazing. So especially if you have a profile picture, you would have this, if you set a profile picture on ENS, you would also get the picture printed on it as well. Very, very cool and an amazing implementation of NFTs in the real world. All right, next. Next is some local news. So for those of you who attended a Jom Launch Asia session on Web3, we had some amazing people like Agent NFT, where they shared a small panel on what is the metaverse, NFTs, and so on. I'm not sure where this was actually. Do you know? But it was a local event that was happening here too. Is it this for the? Okay, so next we're gonna have a small sharing session on those of you who attended Devcon, And this year, we are very proud to have a few scholars, in fact, that represented Malaysia as part of Devcon, which is like the biggest Ethereum event in the whole wide world. So the scholars include Yudish, yeah, Ethan, where is Ethan? Oh, up there, okay. And the other person is Zheng Hui, right? Zheng Hui is here, yeah. All right, so we're gonna invite them over to share some of the experiences they had attending
So
Devcon.
we're gonna make you kings of the night for a bit, so you guys can sit here. So just can exchange a few questions, a few thoughts. So yeah, give them a round of applause.
Welcome.
It's okay. It's gonna be very casual. Don't worry, guys.
Yeah, just a casual.
No hard questions.
You guys gonna have to share.
All right. So maybe we can start by introducing you guys. Maybe just like a quick, who are you and what did you do at Devcon?
Hey everyone, I'm Yudhishthra. I was a Devcon scholar. One of the, him and I were Devcon scholars from Malaysia. So,
Hey everyone, my name is Eason. I am a dev, full stack and also smart contract. And yeah, I'm also a Devcon scholar.
Hi everyone, I'm Zheng Hui. I'm actually a volunteer for Devcon. One of the two volunteer, the other one is hybrid. And yeah, I'm doing like smart contract and backend at the moment. Thank you.
Woo. So I guess first and foremost, maybe some questions for Yudish and Ethan. So what was the process like for becoming a Devcon scholar? Was it hard? Was it like multiple level of interviews? Like, give us some insight.
Yeah. So to be a Devcon scholar, all you guys have to do is register. There's like a form that you have to fill up, right? Like an application form. So you have to like put in your details, talk about what do you want to bring to Ethereum, how do you want to do it, and I think those are like the main questions, those that you have to like think about. And then after that, if you get shortlisted, basically you have to go through an interview session. That interview session was like 15 to 30 minutes long. Honestly, I don't think they are very particular about like what you talk about. As long as you are passionate, even though you don't know how to do it, like for example, you say, oh, I really love ZK and I want to build like ZK applications, but you don't know how, and you are like honest about it, I think they will still like bring you in. You don't have to be technical at all. There are a lot of scholars who are actually just artists or like UI UX designers. Yeah, some are even like community managers. Yeah.
so another thing I'd like to add on is in the application form, there was an interesting question. They actually asked if you were given 10 million US dollars and whatever mentorship you needed from the Ethereum Foundation, what would you build? And I figured that was quite interesting because it actually tests your critical thinking skills, and they really want to see, okay, if let's say you're given all the resources, how would you use it to be able to help scale Ethereum? Now that was like towards the last, but essentially adding on to what Ethan said, they are funding you, right? Ethereum Foundation is funding you, so they want to make sure that like using whatever existing skill sets you have, and also with that passion, how can you help to be able to just build stuff on Ethereum, or even develop communities, or encourage other people to build on it. That's my take. And of course, the interview process was pretty casual because generally they want to know if it was really you who filled out a form. That was obviously one part of it. And also they want to know personally, right? Because generally they want to know face to face, okay, like what are your expectations out of Devcon and things like that.
Zheng Hui, right? So you were a volunteer, right? So did you get to choose which track do you want to join, or do they like sort of let you know which part of it that they need help with? Like, how was your experience as a volunteers, and did you get to also connect with other volunteers and maybe speakers? Maybe you can share with us a little bit of experience as a volunteer.
Yeah, so I would say the process of applying for the volunteer is pretty much the same. And then once you get accepted, they will basically assign you to the track. But you can also tell the volunteer lead like which track you want. They can always arrange for you. And for the volunteer, you have to like go for 2 shifts, and each shift is 8 hours, and then you have to be there like physically for 8 hours. But because they accept like more than enough volunteers they need, so basically when I was there, except like for doing the volunteering part, I get the chance to meet with other volunteers, and also I also have a little bit of time like to attend to other talks during my shift, because I was at the registration part, and because nobody wants to come like at the last 2 days of the registration, so basically it's quite chill for my shift. So that's why I get to do other stuff during my shift as well. So that's pretty much the process.
And was this you guys' first time for an Ethereum event? For all
it is
three of
my
you?
first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is also my first in real life ETH event. Yeah.
For me, generally, I mean, because it's just this year that I got active in this generally in the blockchain space. So it's my first DevCon, my first ETH Bogotá, I mean, ETH Global Hackathon, and yeah, generally it was just a exciting experience.
And I have a question. So for DevCon scholars, right? Were you guys expected to do or to be participating in certain tracks only for scholars, or were there any expectation or maybe some summary that you guys need to write, or a blog, like, or is it like a
Yeah, sure. So about that, here's where I like to just shill a bit about a blog post that I wrote recently. I posted about it on the ETHKL Telegram group. So that actually that was one of the requirements for us as scholars, to come up with a learning artifact after the program. So it could be a video or a blog post. We even had a scholar who had an idea to come up with a shirt. He wanted to combine all the swags he collected from DevCon and just take bits and pieces of it and combine it into a shirt. So basically that is one requirement for us as scholars, but in terms of the tracks, we are free to choose whichever tracks we want to go for.
Yeah. So basically, exactly like what he said. You don't have like tracks that you need to go for, but there are compulsory events that you must attend. So it happens like it doesn't take a lot of your time. Probably like just 2 or 3 events that are compulsory to attend, that you have to go. Either like it's a meetup, or I think it's just, yeah, it's primarily just meetups that you have to go. And then at the end of everything, just write like a learning artifact, which is like what you learned, or it can be anything. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Yudish.
So just adding on, I think there's one more point I missed, is that we had mandatory breakfast and dinner sessions. So breakfast was on
Mandatory?
yeah,
Oh.
mandatory. So you had to be there. On October 10, we all met, like all the scholars met. So we had breakfast, and the facilitator of the program asked us to think of a question. What is this one question that you have before going into DevCon? So my question was pretty much, I'm new in this space, and I want to figure out how can I best align my interests and figure out my purpose in this space, right? And then towards dinner, we were expected to have an answer to that question. Yeah.
And one thing that me and Nick trying to do for tonight's meetup is to try to like find what tracks our community members might find interested in. And I'm curious about all three of you, but maybe we can start with Zheng Hui. Like, what tracks that interest you the most, or that you find yourself like gravitating towards?
Like currently the topics that I most like about is ZK stuff. So I went to the ZK talk. 90% of the talk I went to is related to ZK. Yeah, I think apart from that is like developer tools and infrastructures that also I like about. So yeah, so that's I think ZK is also a very hot topic in the DevCon. Like people always talk about ZK, not about optimistic and ZK rollup. These two is very hot topic. Yeah, and then another thing I noticed and I asked people is like Rust is also a very big thing. People like talk about. They say this is a good language to learn about. Like in the next 2 or 3 years, it's gonna be a big thing. So yeah, that's the thing that I felt about in the DevCon.
Hey, Ethan?
Yeah, I think for me was almost the same. I saw him like quite a lot of the talks. We both went for like a lot of the ZK, layer 2 talks. But I think what was really interesting this year was that there's a lot of talks for UI UX. So that's I think more people are aware now that if we want to onboard the next billion users, which is what Ethereum keeps saying, right? Onboarding the next billion users, the UI UX really has to improve, right? I know this is an ETH meetup, but have any one of y'all used a Cardano wallet before? Do you know how trash Cardano wallets are? Okay, I remember my friend told me to mint some Cardano NFTs to like, you know, sell, right? And like I downloaded the wallet and there's like, it's just terrible, okay? So ETH wallets are not as bad, but definitely if we want to get more people in, like for example, even your parents to use wallets, right? How would that process be? And there's actually like some interesting talks, I think, about account abstraction that really like opened up my mind about what is possible. Yeah.
So I mean, Zheng Hui and Zheng Hui and Ethan pretty much said what I wanted to say. But adding on, I think there was a particular. So first, I'll start with the tracks that I liked. Is I think ZKPs, developer infrastructure, layer 1, layer 2s. But then within those tracks, they actually had certain videos with the title of like explain like I'm 5. So let's say explain like I'm 5, zero knowledge, or even some of it like account abstraction and things like that. I think it really breaks down these complex concepts, right? Because we don't want to learn moon max, right? We want to be able to let everyone generally know, okay, what are we doing behind the scenes as developers, and make them understand so that they can recognize the value that we are trying to provide to them. So generally, this is what I noticed across the various tracks that I attended. Yep.
And then, so you guys been all the way to Bogota. You guys went to Devcon, right? And then you guys got to feel the energy of the space. So I just want to ask each and one of you guys, so coming back from that, what were you guys optimistic about? Like, what did something change on how you see this space? Maybe you can share if anything that you are excited about after going to Bogota. Maybe we can start with Yudish first.
So for me, generally, is that I want to change the perception that the space in general here in Malaysia is all about hype. It shouldn't be about hype. We should truly focus on the potential of Ethereum in actually solving some of the key problems that we notice here. I've not thought of any examples yet, but generally I noticed from the scholars that I've talked to, you know, from other regions of the world, is that the projects they're building, they're always looking towards some social good. But then generally, I mean, just from my observation, I feel that we are still on that idea that, oh, this space is all about hype, and that's something that I want to change the perspective of. That's my observation.
Yeah, so pretty much exactly like what you said, and also yeah, like I was telling a few of you guys just now who I was talking to, in Malaysia it's focused more on commercialization, like how do you make money from Web3, but when I was there, everyone was thinking about how do we build the building blocks of like either DeFi or DeSci or ReFi or all these kind of like crazy stuff, right? So it's like really building the foundation, building protocols, making it open source, and how everyone can leverage that, build on that, to really like improve the whole ecosystem. So people there, they're not thinking about making money. They're thinking about like building and funding like public goods for like the whole ecosystem. Yeah.
I think I have 2 points. First one is like for my personal point of view, I like, because I'm more a technical guy, and I like to learn like ZK cryptography, and what I get from that is it's hard to learn by yourself. So that's why I'm also actually I'm living in a hacker house. So for those of you who don't know hacker house, which is basically you get to live in a space for free, and you also have some mandatory like breakfast or dinner like them, and talk to the sponsors, which they sponsor you to live free for in this space. And then in the hacker house you get to like meet other people. For me, I get to meet other students from different university and talk to them like what they are doing right now. So I think living in this space like really changed my perspective a lot. So I think that's why like Carlos, another member of Peruvian member, but like very active in Malaysia space, like we are trying to like build the hacker space and also CCs in Malaysia. So I think building a community, everyone like learning together will help to accelerate the whole process better, and also help like beginner to onboard faster. So that's the thing like I want to focus maybe in the next 1 year, like after getting back from Devcon. Yep.
All right, thank you guys. Do you have any questions that anyone want to ask? Yep. Do you need a mic? Okay. For those online, just a question was, did anyone take a photo with Vitalik?
Yes, I think both of us did.
Yeah, so the first picture I took was Ethan and me. We actually met him during breakfast because the hotel we were staying at, we literally see him for breakfast every morning. So we just we just decided to just go up and take a picture of him. The second picture was me pretty much giving him a shirt, a BlockScan chat shirt, which is Etherscan's product, wallet-to-wallet messaging, because I just wanted him to check out. He was our first user for BlockScan chat. Yes. So. And 3 months ago, like at the time I met him, 3 months ago, he actually asked us if we had end-to-end encryption, which we already delivered in 3 months' time, and he was quite impressed. And I also told him about other features about BlockScan chat, and also give feedbacks based on that.
All right. Thank you guys. Really great that we have community members that managed to go all the way to Devcon Bogotá, and hopefully you guys can take what you learned there and then inspire and grow the space around here. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Can you guys take the chairs with you and on the side? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is it on? Okay. So thank you very much to the scholars just now. Hope you had an amazing experience. You had a lot of memorable things from it. So one thing we're very thankful of is that most, if not all, of the talks that were done in Devcon were recorded. So meaning that for those of us who weren't able to attend Devcon, which is like 20,000 km or how many? 30 hours of flight to Bogota, you'll be able to watch it on YouTube, which is hosted on archive.devcon.org. But we've also done a bit of summaries on some of the talks that we found interesting, so that we can present some of our summaries so that you don't have to watch through like, I think there was a lot of talks. There was close to 30, 40 talks of it. So for starters, we're gonna have Asfar summarize some of the Ethereum related talks that were done, such as optimistic rollups, how Ethereum is scaling, what's next after the merge. So everyone, welcome Asfar.
Woo. Thank you, Nick. All right. So Devcon was from October 11 to October 14. So we tried to cover Devcon in like less than an hour. So yeah, be kind to us. And I think probably what you can take away from our sharing is find any topics that you are interested in, and then maybe you can watch it later after the meetup. All right. So yeah. So the things that I'm gonna cover about are those questions submitted by you guys. And how I'm going to do it is I'm just going to generally cover some of the topics, and then there are some video bites that we can watch together. So the first thing that I found interesting was there were a lot of questions on layer 2s. And these are one of the quick videos on one of the session on covering what are the themes that you should expect in layer 2s. And if you are an application builder building, especially in this part of the world, fees are a big thing, right? So what are the things that you need to know to onboard your users? All right. So the first trend that they mentioned was off-chain data is going to stay. So previously, the notion and the belief was everything must be on-chain, right? If it's not on-chain, then why? But then now you are already seeing a lot of applications, even chain, putting some of their data off-chain and also on-chain. And does it make sense for your application to have all of the data on-chain? So for example, if you are building a game, does it make sense that all of your interactions are done on chain? If you are an NFT project, is it possible that users can stake your NFT token without actually sending a transaction on chain? And I think a few days ago I bought an NFT, and then there was an option to like stake it, and I realized that I didn't have to do anything on chain. And so those are the things that I think application or founders, developers can start to think about. If you want to build your own application and want to consider of having off-chain and on-chain separation, what are the things that you need to think about? And this also means a new discussion on what would that mean for security. Does that mean that now you have to figure out or what is the security aspect for your on-chain matters? What is the security aspect for your off-chain matters? So next is bridges. So bridges are very important, right? So you use bridge to basically to move over your funds from layer 1s to layer 2s or in between layer 2s. And there are a lot of different types of bridges with different mechanics, and it is still a very interesting space that I personally find myself very interested in. So there are bridges that do that like connects, that do it through liquidity networks. There are bridges like Hop, which do like a lock and min mechanism, which also means that innovations are definitely gonna keep happening in the bridging space. And as application builders, we also need to be aware what are the options that are available. But some of the trends that have happened, because some of these bridges are so successful, you have centralization problems. And what are we? How do we, as a space, make this better? And then how do we identify which part of this innovation will introduce like a new risk vectors? And also another thing that they mentioned also, that research on ZK proof in bridge are getting interesting. So if you are interested in ZK, you should definitely also pay attention on how it applies to bridges, because now you can also run light clients in your bridges using ZK proof, which means that you don't need to run like a full node or like a full messaging protocol to like run a bridge. And then, are you guys familiar with L2 beats? So L2 beats basically like they list all of the informations on layer 2s, and recently they launched like a bridge dashboard to give you guys like to give users informed information on what are the security assumptions that you would take whenever you are using a bridge. And I think it is also a great material to cover as well if you guys are interested. So that is called layer 2 beats. All right. So next is some optimistic optimization. So I thought I would also play this video. All right, let me try this.
Right for them. When it comes to optimistic rollups, we're going to see these protocols branch out and really dive into innovative optimizations. I've called them optimistic optimizations, which I think is kind of fun. Arbitrum Nitro and Optimism Bedrock are both huge steps forward for the ecosystem. Yesterday at the Rollup Day event, Vitalik actually proposed several possible ways that we could decentralize provers and also diversify provers. And luckily for us, both Arbitrum Nitro and Optimism Bedrock are already architected in a way that should allow for multiple provers and different types of provers. One of the cool things about both Arbitrum Nitro and Optimism Bedrock is that they're sort of paving the way for allowing validity proofs within optimistic rollups, which is really cool and something I would definitely keep right for them.
Right. So layer 2s are still new, and most are still rely on trusted entities. But then there's also this trend that mentioned there are a lot of innovation happening that's making it better, and how Arbitrum, Nitro, and Optimism Bedrock is leading the way. So yep, so maybe you can use those chains. So next, I'm just gonna cover very briefly about layer 3. So basically, it says that rollups with L3 capabilities can win the market. Basically, it means that alternative layer 1s or layer 2s can settle on your layer 2, which then borrows the security from Ethereum. But I probably won't cover this as much because this is still very, very, very new. Layer 2s are already new, so I assume layer 3s are already like super new. And then next is so we have a lot of ZK fans in the group. So ZK wars are definitely happening, and I personally have lost track of all the ZK names. So I have a clip here that we can also hear about the trends with ZK. One second.
So I'd say things are getting a little spicy in the cryptoverse around various ZK rollups that are entering the ecosystem. I posit that competition is good, and I hope we can turn the spice into something constructive and eventually coalesce around some helpful standards. I think we're sort of in that diverge-converge area when it comes to ZK rollups, and we're still on the diverge side, but hopefully we'll get to converge soon. And you know, we're going to see a debate about how important ZK EVMs are, and that's also going to necessarily mean a discussion of how Starknet's non-EVM ecosystem compares.
Yep. So ZKs are definitely a lot of being discussed right now. So if you're interested in this in the ZK space, do keep in touch with the space. And I think we have a few members here like Chichuan who are very well versed in the space. All right. Okay. And then the next thing that I find most interesting is, so this is like from a different talk. So if you so this is about fiat on-ramp landscape in layer 2s. So it means that basically you can buy crypto on layer 2 using your debit card, right? And then I think it is a very important space. So you can see like a snapshot on how many fiat on-ramps are available on each of these layer 2s, and you'll be surprised that a lot of the widely used layer 2s, they don't have enough fiat on-ramp. And so it means without fiat on-ramp, users would need to buy from another chain, bridge to the layer 2, and then only they would receive it. Which is nothing wrong, but it's probably a little bit harder to inform your friends or whoever interested to use layer 2. Or they could also buy it from Binance or from over exchange and then deposit it to those layer 2s. So there are a lot of friction there. So if you are an application builder, so I think these are some trends that you would need to be aware of. And it is still lacking, but it is much better than a year ago. All right. So this one is a bit technical. So one hot topic on layer 2 is EIP 4844, which introduced a new transaction format, which is called blob, and it will alter the space on beacon chain, and this is specifically for rollup. So right now, how rollups will work is that they will post their transaction on layer 1 using call data, which is very expensive. But there is a way to make this 10 to even 100x cheaper. And this is one of the ways to fulfill the vision of scaling Ethereum, right? And one of the first most important EIP is EIP 4844, which specifying a certain type of transaction that only rollups can use. And if this is live, that means when you use all your layer 2s, it will be much cheaper, because now they are using a new type of transaction that is just for them. And so someone asked Vitalik, like, when would we expect this to be live, right? So Vitalik said that it's important that the change. So this change is very important because it is the change that ends all change for layer 2s. Because when it happens, it means future layer 2s that want to settle on Ethereum needs to apply to this standard. And the earlier the better. And one of the considerations why the core developers are still thinking about this is because layer 2s are still new and are still not ready. And there's also another case about withdrawals, like all the stake into withdrawals. So there are other things that are pushing the EIP 4844 away from the priority a little bit, because there are other things as well. But some of the arguments on why we need EIP 4844 right now is because applications are not being built because of higher fees. So if you have EIP 4844, the argument is now it's cheaper, so you have more applications on it. And only looking at your tech debt is not enough of an argument to not implement EIP 4844. And more work is also needed with client teams, because all the client teams mean they need to be involved in the discussion to involve this EIP. But then the consensus was that everyone agreed that both EIP 4844 and withdrawal to happen within the next 9 months. So it'll be interesting to see how that timeline evolves and shifts. All right. So how's everyone doing? Everyone still okay? All right. Okay. So the next thing that I want to touch about is Web3 and Web2 security. And I think it's a very, very important topic. And Ethan mentioned discussion about UX and how even UX also plays a part in security. So I thought this talk is very, very interesting. So I think if any one of you guys are interested, if you are developers, founders, designers, project managers, this is very, very a good talk. And who here know about any Discord or Twitter hack? I mean, of course, right? Like it happens almost every few weeks, and that itself shows you don't need a Web3 security someone audit. Someone can just like hack your Discord on Twitter, share a malicious contract code, and then like just screw you over, right? And so those are the type of security implication that you need to think about. That doesn't necessarily touch Web3, but still can affect you immensely. And then one thing that they talk about is the difference between you hosting your own services and running your own services locally. And I thought it's an interesting
Anyone
thing
else
to
on the
name.
panel?
Oh, 1 second. And while I play this, maybe for those that have their own NFT projects, they have their own Discord servers, maybe you guys can think about this.
Anyone else on the panel? Go ahead.
So when I think about Web 2 versus Web 3 security, especially right now, how early we are with Web 3 and Ethereum and blockchain, there is going to be a need for Web 2 stuff in your stack. Not even consumer facing necessarily, but like who here actually like doesn't run their project on GitHub and uses something like Mattermost instead of Discord or Slack or other non-hosted? You're awesome, whoever that one guy in the back is. But yeah.
Anyone else on the panel? Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's an example of how little we take attention into these things. And if you recall, there was also an exploit on Sushi because a malicious contractor pushed a malicious code on the GitHub repo. So if you have contractors, freelance developers who have access to your GitHub repo, it is something that you need to think about, because those are not Web3 security, right? Those are genuinely Web2 security and better DevOps. All right. Okay. Yep. So this was the example of the Sushi attack that I mentioned. Yep. And another thing that I found very interesting is, so not your keys, not your coin, right? But yeah, why don't you try telling that to your parents? Not your keys, not your coin, when you want to convince them to use crypto. So I thought this part here is interesting.
Like in this space we need to understand one thing, that it is not always about getting the getting your mindset very crypto focused or whatnot. You can be a crypto anarchist, but you have to be practical in the sense, stop telling like 60-year-old grandmas to manage their own keys. They are much better off using a custodial service. Not your keys, not your coins, everyone's favorite logo. But if you don't know how to manage your private keys, doesn't matter if your key is yours or not, it will just get compromised. So unless understand.
So yep, if you have your own applications, you might want to figure out who are your users, can they manage their own keys, and what are the security considerations that you need to think about. Another thing is, so do you guys know that now signatures can also move funds from your wallet? Yeah, so now signatures can move funds from your wallet. It is actually an there's an EIP on that. So these are the things that we need to be aware of. And already outside of this room, a lot of people don't even know that signature doesn't cost gas. And now signature can move funds. So those are the, another new vector of things that we need to think about. And here's a very interesting clip highlighting on how now we are catching up with the development, because things are moving so fast that things like this.
For the longest time, there were transactions.
Okay, wait. All right.
For the longest time, there were transactions, and the transactions have like financial value, and it's pretty easy to like, you know, like teach users like this is a thing, and like there might be some bad things that happen depending on if you click this button. And then now a lot more stuff is just off chain, right? Or it's not on chain until after a certain period of time, if the order is matched or whatever, right? And because of this like super early assumption that like everything is there's a key, and then you have transactions, and the transactions go on a chain. Because of that super early assumption that we made, we did not see this coming, where now just a signature, right? Just like an off-chain signature can actually lose you like all of your NFTs or all of your tokens or allow permission somewhere else, right? And so now we're like playing catch up while OpenSea is like sprinting ahead, like making sure that it's usable, making things scalable. We're playing catch up to try to like map back. And like in reality, we should have never ever treated a transaction, like an on-chain transaction.
Right. Okay, so to repeat Jason's question was that can a signature that you sign move your tokens or NFTs? Well, that is yes, because for those of you who are not clear, something when you that you sign is that it's one of those where you just click sign, but it doesn't cost you any gas. But there is a new standard in ERC20 where it's called permit, where you can essentially sign and then they can use your signature to increase your token allowance. So when I say increase token allowance, it's when you perform a swap, and then you see one of those where you need to approve USDC or whatever first before you swap. So now a signature can be used to use the permit function that can now increase your allowance. So that's why we say that you can move tokens just by a signature now.
Yep, and also if you guys realize, if you use OpenSea, they actually use a mixture of on-chain and off-chain for trading NFTs. So you could properly approve OpenSea contract to buy and sell your NFTs, but the order matching are done off-chain. So it means that you have to be careful whenever you are signing a message from a website, because a malicious actor can easily rig those signatures so that it matches on OpenSea's backend and then execute the transaction on your side. So yeah, so these are definitely deeper topics, but yeah, do be aware of that. And I think for application and developers, I think it's also on us to make our users more secure and to onboard more people in the space. Yep. Any questions? No? Yeah. So the question is, in the end, users will still need to sign a message, right? Yes, in the end, they do still need to sign a message. But if most people are using MetaMask and the signature are gibberish or not too friendly, it's very hard for someone to not fully know what they are signing. If you watch the video, they did discuss on how wallets also needs to do more on showing these signature messages and also what other applications can do. But yep, so yes, users still need to sign, but now signatures can be dangerous.
Yeah, I do see that there's a lot of questions on token signatures and how they can move funds. But I think we'll definitely do a thread on ETL on that on Twitter so that we can cover more of your questions for that. Yeah, so do follow ETL on Twitter so that you get the latest updates on that.
All right, thank you, Nick. Just very quickly, a session on chain analysis. I will give later. So, how do you analyze off-chain and on-chain attack vectors? But I wouldn't cover this much. All right. So the last topic that I'll be covering is Infura's path to decentralization, which is very, very, very interesting. So, how many here uses MetaMask? Or maybe the better question is, how many of you don't use MetaMask? Right? Okay. Yeah. See. Infura is a developer focus, so it is a node as a service. So if you check your MetaMask, you are actually, every time you execute a transaction, you are actually using Infura's node. So Infura was created in order to make you interact with Ethereum as easy as possible, especially for developers, because running your own node can be very hard. I tried running my own node. It took me a few weeks. It was probably because of me, but still, imagine you are trying to run your own application and then running your own node, so it doesn't make sense, right? What's interesting was when they mentioned this in Devcon 2016, a lot of people were saying like, I don't need node as a service, I can just run my own node. But then there were also a group of people that are saying, oh cool, yeah, I'll use it so I can just focus on building my applications. All right, and then another question was why didn't they start off decentralized, like a lot of things, right? And then here you can see a lot of the reason why, because it is very complicated. So if they start off decentralized when they started, a lot of resources need to be done just for the research part. Whereas at this time, they are already putting out fires, making sure things don't break. So these are the kind of things that they choose early on, but with always decentralization in mind. They also handle billions of requests per day, so it's not easy to do that while doing it decentralizing. And yeah, so basically these are the reasons why they didn't start off decentralized, because it's operationally complex, and yeah, at the same time you have to make sure that it's always up for the users. All right, so I thought this is like really cool. So how would like decentralizing Infura look like, right? So they made it very clear that they are still in the design phase, but I think this is like a great clip from the person presenting.
Really made us think. Maybe that was the tipping. Really made us think. Maybe that was the tipping point. Maybe that's the point where we need to start considering now's the time to do things differently. Because for us, decentralization was always the plan. We said we're going to get there. It's just not the first step in that plan. We said that we were going to set out to prove that Web3 could be served by SaaS. We're going to say that we're going to run a SaaS service, and that's going to be beneficial for the ecosystem, and it's going to bring more developers in. It's going to bring in more investor interest. A lot of activity is going to come into the space because people will see, oh, I can actually make a living and support myself running a business in Web3, when at the time it wasn't very clear which models would work. And so now, Infura is not the only game in town. There's dozens. Like they can't even fit on this screen anymore. And we feel like we've accomplished that goal. We've proved that SaaS works in Web3. And so now we want to prove that Web3 models can be used to serve SaaS. And that really made us think maybe that was the tipping point. Maybe that's...
Yeah, so I thought that was cool. So the tagline was, it was probably rehearsed, right? We want to prove that SaaS can work in Web3, hence the node as a service. And now we're going to prove how Web3 can work in SaaS. So yeah, that's, to me, that was a cool line. All right, so how would it look like, right? I'm going to try. I'm not from Infura. So, so they've defined the network participants for decentralizing Infura. So first, you must have the node providers, which means those who are running the nodes themselves. So these are the ones that will be providing the node service, and in return to receive the reward. You also have, you also have like a network status watches, where you will keep track the uptime of the nodes. So it means that you can choose to just run as a network status watches. And you also have like an ingress node, which is sells network resources to users, or sort of like a router. And so these are the three main participants. But bear in mind that this is still in the design phase, and it might change. Okay, so this is for the node providers, right? So these are their roles. They will commit to provide network capacity, specify the protocols supported, specify the traffic supported, and compensated for providing services. So it means if you run your own node, you can participate in this network, so people will route their transactions through your node. So for the network status watches, so these will periodically test those nodes with small volume of requests to check whether they are alive or not, to measure performance and correctness, and then give report to a status page, and probably incorrect responses can inform penalties. All right, so basically these are your watches, right? They check whether is this node alive, because running a node, sometimes you might not be aware that your nodes are down. So you sort of need like a third party to watch over for you and like notify you. And if you as a user, you probably will want to know whether your node is live or not when you want to send a transaction. Yeah, so this is basically how it would look like. So the status watcher will check on the nodes, and then the status watcher will send like an update to like a status page. And then lastly is the ingress node. So you can also run an ingress node. Basically user will call to you, and then this ingress node will then route you to whichever node that is most suitable, and you can also make money. But again, this is still in the design phase, so I guess technically you could run your own ingress node, and then charge users whenever they want to use you. And then on your side, you just need to call on to these node providers and just provide the service. So yeah, so this is how it would look like. So basically, if you look from the left, so node provider, network status watcher, and then end user will come in at the last part of the chain. So this is how the architecture looks like. A bit complicated, but basically, where's my mouse? Basically, you can see here, so this will be us, those are applications, those who consumes it. It's either, so we'll be using the ingress node, and then in the end, we will use these nodes to send our transactions. So I thought like, it's a pretty cool. And the big hot question is it going to be a new chain, right? Is this new node, is this new decentralized node as a service a chain? So yeah, so there is of course a question on that, and here's the answer.
Team.
Do you think it's likely that this on-chain registrations of the providers will be a new, yet to be launched dedicated chain, or is it more likely that it will be on an existing chain like the Ethereum mainnet?
That's one of the things that we've been considering as we're going through the design. We're leaning towards don't start a new chain for that. Like, try to use something that exists. And that goes back to the why are we doing it now rather than in 2016 when people are talking about like micro payments between providers and like do you use state channels for that and all these other things. Like, we would have had to devote a significant amount of our research just on that problem, whereas now a lot of these primitives are out there and we can try to use some of the things that already exist to build their team.
Do you think?
Right, so yeah, we can't wait for this to become a reality. And we at ETHCAL, we also want to run our own nodes. So for anyone that are interested to participate in that, please let me know. I tried running my own node by myself. I definitely couldn't do it. Thank you, Nick, for having me out a lot of times. So yeah, so that's all for my session. Thank you, guys.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Asfar, for sharing all the Ethereum-related information. Talks about decentralization, layer 2s, optimistic rollups, and all that. All right. So for me, I will be leading the MEV track from Devcon 6. So first, to get everyone up to speed in the network, does everybody know or have you heard of MEV? Who here has heard of MEV? Raise your hands. Not very much. So most of you have never heard of MEV at all yet, or you're not clear on what this word MEV mean. Okay, so then if you've not heard of it or you're not clear about what MEV is, so has anyone seen those like Twitter threads where you see like NFT arbitrages, sandwiching, fun running? Has anyone seen Twitter threads on that? Or do you perform this kind of fun running yourselves? Okay, that's PsyOps. I will not reveal. You will probably not reveal yourself, because MEV itself made billions of dollars last year. And they all compete for a single thing. Essentially, in the blockchain world, there is one thing. In the world of MEV, there's everything. Everyone is competing around one thing, which is block space. Block space on Ethereum is limited. Block space on Ethereum is expensive. The average Ethereum transaction costs you, I don't know, from $1 or upwards of $6 to NFT mints. That's a good nasi lemak. That's very expensive. Okay, so block space is expensive, especially when networks become very congested. So how many here take part in NFT mints? So I think I met you guys, some of the groups there. You guys take part in a lot of NFT mints. I'm sure when you've been to as part of NFT mints, you've seen gas go as high as, I don't know, 100 Gwei, what was that, 2,000? 2 ETH for one NFT mint? Okay. Oh, you joined the other side, okay. Yeah, so NFT mints can go up to 2 Ether, like 2 Ether just for gas. You're not even guaranteed if the NFT comes to you. Yeah, so this is a form of MEV. Another form of MEV is also fund running, where let's say if you are a whale, you make a very big transaction of, let's say, I don't know, you make a $2 million transaction. The thing about this is that certain bots can fund run your transaction and place your trade just in front or behind of them. So your 2 million trade might move the price of Ether, let's say, down by $20. So a bot knows that, and they can immediately follow up from your transaction. So how they guarantee that their transaction gets included right after yours is known as MEV. So the full definition of MEV is known as minor slash maximal extractable value. Why it used to be called minor is because if you are a miner, does anyone here used to mine for proof of work Ethereum? Oh, nice. You used to mine for, you're awesome. Okay. All right. So if you've done mining for proof of work Ethereum, you will know that the miner has the ultimate control and the ultimate say of transactions. So if you are a miner, you can choose what transactions to include, and you can also choose what transactions, in what order you want these transactions to be. So let's say if there is a mint for the other side, are there a maximum of 10,000 other sides, maybe something like that? No, 100,000. Okay. So let's say if our friend here knows that the last other side is about to be included in the block it's about to create, he can remove your transaction and put his transaction inside of the block. So that is a term known as, that's why it used to be called minor extractable value. So back in proof of work Ethereum, how a block was built was that miners would take transactions from the mempool. When you click on submit a transaction, your transactions get sent to a public mempool. So this mempool is something that everyone can see. I can see whatever the contents are in the mempool. Anyone who runs a node, or in fact, if you subscribe to a service, you can see what's in the mempool. You can see that our friend, let's say Jason, is trying to mint an NFT. You can see that Munir is trying to buy a token. So the problem with this is that there was no privacy in the public mempool. And that's why we created MEV. So in this way, we can somewhat make a private mempool so that whenever you're making a big trade or you're making a big NFT buy, your intentions are not revealed to everyone until they've been included in the block. Because once something has been included in the block, they will not be, you can't change them. It's already been included in the block. So you won't be able to change it. Recently, especially because with the Ethereum merge that happened a month ago, narrative has changed. So that's why that was one of the major talks that was covered in Devcon this year. The term has actually changed from minor extractable value to maximal extractable value. And that's because of the difference in the way that proof of stake Ethereum works. So next. Next actually. So this is how a new block is added into proof of stake Ethereum. I will not block the screen. So if everyone can have a look on the left, everyone remembers the adorable panda meme, right? That led up to the merge. So there was the black panda and there was the white panda. Together they formed the execution and consensus layer of Ethereum. So if everyone missed that out, you should catch up with that. So essentially, the current way of how a new block is added into Ethereum now is that the consensus client will call the execution engine and ask, like, are there any blocks in the public mempool? So the mempool is still public. You can still submit transactions to the public mempool in a way that everyone can see it. So right now, if you still use Ethereum and you submit transactions, they're still public. We can still see what you're going to do. We can still see you're going to mint an NFT. We can still see that you're going to dump your ETH or something like that. So one of the suggestions that has been included and proposed by Vitalik himself is that this idea of the proposer-builder separation. So rather than your consensus client including transactions from the normal public mempool where everyone has access to, we're going to build a secret marketplace, or not secret, but we're trying to make it public. We're going to build a marketplace of private transactions where you can include your transactions that you want to do. For example, you want to arbitrage, you want to fund run, you want to mint NFTs. You can include them into a marketplace where certain entities will try and bundle them into a very profitable block, as profitable as they can be. So rather than having if you run a node and a validator, you were to collect transactions from the public mempool, you would outsource essentially the block building to any third party who can provide you with the most valuable blocks. Because as a validator, your main goal is to earn the most money. That's like quite obvious. You want to earn as much fees as you want from validating on Ethereum. So rather than you picking the normal order flow on the normal mempool, you can outsource this to people who are called block builders. So there's two words, builders. So builders are people who collect transactions from searchers, and they do this privately. If you were to send a transaction through the what do you call it? If you were to send a transaction to a builder, it's private. So if I send my intention to, let's say, let's say arbitrage the difference between Uniswap and SushiSwap, I wouldn't send it to the public mempool, because that's like saying, hey everyone, there's gold there. because it's public, everyone can see it. So what I would do is that I would send it privately to a builder who will include it into a block, and eventually once they have a valid once they have a valuable block, they would go to the proposer who gets to choose what the next block is, and they will say like, hey, I have a profitable block that's more profitable than if you're going to include normal transactions from the Ethereum mempool. So in this way, they would see that the block that they get from the builder is more valuable than the normal Ethereum block. So of course, the logical order flow is just to choose the more valuable block. And so that changes the order flow to something like this. Next, okay. So this is quite a bit of this was taken directly from Devcon itself, but I'm going to simplify it a little bit. We'll start on the right, where users are all of us in green. When we use MetaMask, when we use sorry, I'm blocking. When we use MetaMask or we use any other wallet, in fact, and we want to perform a trade, it could even be a small trade. I've been sandwiched for like 0.5 Ether. So even these kind of small amounts are vulnerable to this kind of attacks. So us users, searchers are people who do MEV. So people who front run, or people who, let's say, you arbitrage the difference between different DEXs, they are known as searchers. And people like us, users, searchers, and searchers also include bots, by the way. So let's say if you run a bot that is going to automatically mint NFTs, you would be considered as a searcher. And so both of us together, the green and orange, we would be included into the category. We would submit our transactions to the people known as builders. So anyone can become a builder. Anyone who can decide how to order the most profitable block can be a builder. So let's say I can see that I have two transactions where someone is paying 20 Gwei and another person is paying 20 Gwei. So if I include two of this into a block, the total fees that the miner will earn is 40 Gwei, right? So however, if I see that there's another transaction which is going to bribe me with, let's say, 100 Gwei to mint an NFT, but he doesn't want everyone else to know that he's minting this NFT, he can submit it to me, and I would see that I would build this together as a block. So when I build this together into a block, it becomes 100 plus 40 plus 20. So in this way, I immediately have the most profitable block, and these people are known as builders. So once you have a profitable block built, you would send it to these things known as relays. So relays are essentially a private communication channel so that you can submit your transactions without everyone, the whole world, knowing about it. So if you have a very private transaction that you want and this opportunity to only be known to you, then you should submit it to these relays where you can submit them privately. Once they are submitted to the relays, you would have to use, or not you would have to use, but rather if you are a validator, you would use this software called MEV Boost, MEV Boost, where essentially you'll be able to accept transactions and transactions and blocks essentially from the relays. So one of the biggest themes in Devcon this year was that they wanted to decentralize the relay role. So how many people here have heard of flashbots? Or have you used flashbots to protect your transactions? There's only 3 of you, so this is something that we should all take away from. But I'll cover more of that in the user section. So, so under MEV Boost, if you are a validator, instead of taking your blocks from your own execution engine, you would essentially use MEV Boost to query from the relays which blocks would be most profitable. So let's say if relay 1 says, hey, I have a block that is worth 100 Gwei, and relay 2 says that I have a block worth 500 Gwei, and relay 3 says I only have a block worth 20 Gwei. So as a validator, you can choose to accept the most profitable block that will give you the most amount of profit, rather than you sourcing your own block building, and you only find, like, let's say, a very low 10 Gwei in total worth of fees. So in this way, relays are essentially marketplaces where people can build blocks and submit the most valuable. They compete to submit the most valuable block to whoever that's going to propose the next block. So these are also some of the ideas that were shared during Devcon itself. One of the efforts to make block space more accessible, and some of the ideas that they wanted to make it more user-friendly also in a way. One of the things that they wanted to cover was account abstraction. So everyone knows that when you want to send an NFT, you need to pay gas. Regardless if you don't care about Ether at all, or you just want the NFT, you still have to pay gas. So even if, let's say, you buy a token, you have USDC, you want to transfer it, you need gas. And the most frustrating thing is that you just have like 1 or 2 GUI missing just to send the transaction. So that one of the ideas they explored is account abstraction, where they can have another address pay gas on your behalf. Because it's the same, it turns into the same sum. As long as someone is paying gas and I'm being paid, then that's fine, right? It's fair for the protocol. So essentially, this is a way that account abstraction is something they're exploring, so that you don't need to have Ether to be able to make transactions. Another thing that they were trying to explore as part of the protocol is instant confirmations. So wouldn't it be great if, let's say, you click MetaMask and it's immediately confirmed on chain? Like, there's nothing you have to do. It's immediately confirmed, and it will be guaranteed on chain. So although one of the ideas was that even though your transaction has not been included into a block, you could build a protocol where it promises that you will be included in the future. So in that way, it's considered as instant confirmation. You will be included regardless of what happens. So a third thing is gas futures. So this one, I found this pretty cool. So if people who are into finance, if you know about futures, you can buy something in advance of what's going to happen. So for example, if you know that you're going to make 1,000 transactions in the future, you could buy a gas futures to lock in the price of gas of, let's say, 15 GUI. So it doesn't matter whatever happens in the network after that. So let's say if there's a huge NFT mint for, let's say, it spikes the gas up to 1,000 GUI, that's fine. You've already bought the futures for 15 GUI and you've locked in the price of that. Another cool idea that they suggested was automatic cancellations or retries. So under certain conditions, let's say if a transaction was cancelled because it could be because the block was invalid, you would have automatic retries for this. Or let's say if you send a contract, you send a mint, let's say, but then you send it before the time you're allowed to mint. You could have the protocol automatically retry this once the correct conditions are fulfilled. Okay, so I know that was a lot on a protocol level. So of course, this was a very general overview. You wouldn't be able to do anything, you wouldn't be able to do much about it as a user, because this is the general roadmap and direction that Ethereum wants to take to tackle MEV. But as a user, since most of you indicated that you have not used Flashbots, you are not aware of MEV, I highly recommend all of you, when you use MetaMask, change your RPC to rpc.flashbots.net. So that's the one under the settings, and I think we can create a thread on this later on. So changing this RPC to Flashbots RPC allows you to route your transactions as a normal user into the Flashbots relay. So this means that all of your transactions become private, meaning that let's say if you want to perform a swap, your transaction will no longer go to the public mempool, but it will go privately to Flashbots, who will route it directly into a block without it going to the public mempool. So again, the public mempool is something that is public. So if you are making big trades, of course people will see your trades and they might front run you. So this is the easiest thing you can all do. You can just change your MetaMask to rpc.flashbots.net, which will enable you to use Flashbots instantly. You don't need to write bots, you don't need to run a node, you don't need to subscribe to any other services. Just change your RPC to this. And of course, Flashbots also recently announced a new product called Flashbots Swave, which stands for Single Unifying Action for Value Expression. That's a mouthful. But essentially, it's their latest project with Flashbots is that they want to create a MEV-aware, fully encrypted mempool. So by default, they want to make sure that the Ethereum block space is private, meaning that no one will be able to know your trade or what you are doing as part of the transaction until it lands on chain. So of course, as I said, there's many reasons for that. You don't want your transactions to be taken over by someone. You don't want let's say a miner to be able to see your transaction, take it out and replace it with its own transaction. Because if you are a validator now, you can simply copy someone's transaction and have it copy his transaction, replace it with your address, and then it becomes like your opportunity. So Flashbots, next. So the specs, Flashbots Swave is still an idea or a protocol. Nothing has actually been built yet. Nothing has actually been built yet, and they promised to release the specifications of Swave this week. Well, they said next week, which is this week, but as we all know, it's like soon. So the promises of Swath is that it promises to be a fully decentralized block builder. So in a way, if you were sanctioned by OFAC, let's say how many of you here use Tornado Cash to make transactions? Yeah, if you have, you probably would have gotten your account sanctioned. So that means if you were to use certain protocols that are based in the US, your transactions are actually not going to be included in the when a miner chooses this. So it promises to be fully decentralized. Second is that it promises to be fully open source. So meaning that if you are on GitHub, the development is going to be done on GitHub, so everyone will be able to contribute to it. It will also be EVM compatible, meaning that any Ethereum chain, any Ethereum-like chain will be able to use it. User execution, that's quite a bit. But one thing I want to highlight is that it will also be cross-chain or multi-chain support. So meaning that it will support any EVM chain such as Polygon, Optimism, whatever chain, Moonbeam will be supported for this. So enabling programmable privacy, order flow. Yeah, so essentially it promises programmable privacy, where you essentially, your transactions will not be revealed until it should be. Full specs, yeah, so essentially the full specs will be coming very soon, and we'll be able to share it once it's been shared onto GitHub.
All right, okay. Thank you, Nick.
All right, thanks everyone.
Nick. Woo! All right, so what's gonna happen now? We're gonna take a few minutes break, and then afterwards we will just play some video on Zcase. It's optional for everyone to watch. So yeah, we're gonna take a few minutes break. Right, thank you guys. And can I have Isan, Yudish, and Zheng Hui on the stage to come in front for a bit? Thank you.
Yeah, so guys, All right, everyone, could I have your attention for a bit? Everyone, just for a bit. Everybody, could we have your attention for a bit? All right. Guys, just a quick announcement. All right, for those. All right, thank you, thank you. All right, guys, so I think we have a ZK track planned. However, due to some circumstances, we can't play the video. However, this place is still open until 9:45, 9:50. Yeah, for about 10 more minutes for you guys to network, meet other students. Meet other developers, students, other people in the space also. So you guys have until 9:50 for you guys to grab more pizzas, meet everyone, and then we'll see you guys in the next monthly roundup. Thank you, everyone.